lembrando que a AMA é uma entidade que ajuda as colônias armênias em todo o mundo, mesmo aquelas que não são evangélicas, dando a famílias necessitadas condições para viverem de maneira mais digna. E, tirando esse trabalho social, que é fundamental, a AMA também patrocina, ajuda as igrejas evangélicas armênias em vários países do mundo, dando a elas condições para continuar exercendo o seu importante papel de pregar o evangelho da graça de Deus a todas as pessoas. E a nossa igreja aqui tem sido muito abençoada com a ajuda da AMA. Se não fosse a ajuda da AMA, nós teríamos muita dificuldade de continuarmos os nossos trabalhos aqui aos domingos. Então, hoje, com muita alegria, nós recebemos a presença destes nobres representantes da AMA, e aqui, então, está o senhor Zavin Khanjan. Peço a gentileza de, por favor, gravarem a mensagem do senhor Zavin, irá para o YouTube a partir do domingo que vem. Your message will be taped and you will go to the YouTube as from next Sunday. Depois da mensagem, eu farei uma tradução, se necessário, resumida em português, para que todos os irmãos possam compreender o teor da mensagem trazida pelo senhor Zavin Khanjan.
Bom dia. Good morning. I will be speaking in English today. That's what was recommended because more people understand English than Armenian, I guess, even though I would have liked, and I like every Armenian evangelical pulpit to have an Armenian message all over the world, wherever they are, because that's our mother tongue, and that's what God likes to hear. Greetings from the Armenian Missionary Association of America, its board of directors, its president, Dr. Nazaret Darakjan, and the larger family of the AMAA, which extends all over the world, basically, on 5 continents, in 5 unions, the Europe Fellowship, and many other churches and fellowships around the world. The AMAA works and has operations and representations in 24 countries around the world. Of course, the lion's share of its service is in Armenia and Artsakh. Next comes the Near East, Syria and Lebanon, and the rest of it, of course, is all over the world. And you certainly are part of it. And as I stand here in front of you on this pulpit this morning, I feel that I'm a member, we all feel, that we are members of this family, of your family, and we certainly feel at home. So thank you very much. Special thanks to Pastor Roy, your Vice President Vartan Momjian, some of the youth in this church who have been with us all the past 3 days, who have been guiding us, taking us places, making explanations, introductions, and today, of course, again, thanks to them, we are here. The warm hospitality that we have experienced so far is not good for you because we're going to come back. So we like it so much that we're going to come back. And Tom will bring us back as well. As introduced, I have my wife here, Sona Khanjan, Dr. Hasmik Baran, Dr. Vaharam Shemasyan, and Tam Avazian from the US, who are all linked some way and somehow to the AMAA and are members of the Armenian Evangelical community. A few thoughts before I get into my message today. A few thoughts that engulf my mind because we've been passing through turbulent times. Since 2020, you remember, there have been so many incidents around the world affecting the Armenian community. Let me name 4 of them at least. In Armenia, we had the Artsakh War, the 2020 44-day Artsakh War, and then that followed in December 2022 with the blockade of Artsakh. And in the Near East again, we certainly had the big Beirut explosion in the summer of 2020, and now a month ago, of course, or less than a month ago, we had the earthquake in Aleppo, Syria. So all these incidents have shaken the Armenian communities, not only in the places that I named, but also around the world. So that takes me brings to mind a verse, of course, in the Bible, which I would like to read, and that engulfs my mind, which is very pertinent to the description that I just gave about these communities around the world. It's from the 2 Corinthians 4, verses 8 and 9. We are hard pressed on every side, but we are not crushed. Perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not abandoned. Struck down, but not destroyed. This is the situation that fits us as Christians, as Armenians, especially as Christians. It reminds me of a businessman, an Armenian-American businessman. You might have heard of him because I think he had a lot of influence in Latin America as well, in South America. His name was Demos Shakarian. He was the founder of the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International. He wrote a book, and the book was called The Happiness People on Earth. And you would think, the first time you look at this book, on the cover of the book, and you see the name Shakarian, you immediately think that he's talking about the Armenian nation, Armenians. But no, once you get into the core of it, you'll find out that he's talking about Christianity. He's talking about Christians. He's talking about people who follow our Lord Jesus Christ. That's where the happiness is. Of course, Armenians certainly are Christians, and this can apply to Armenians as well. But with all the disasters that we've felt, it's very difficult to say that we've been happy all our history. That's a very difficult proposition to make. But if we are Christians, we know how to overcome all these difficulties. We know how to cope with all these difficulties. Christianity brings happiness in the worst conditions that man can be. I'm reminded of my paternal grandmother's father, Baghdasaryan. He was a preacher in a village called Zak around Arapkir in Turkey, in historic Armenia. And during the genocide, he was picked up from his home and murdered in front of his house. And when he was murdered, he uttered these words. These words are not only uttered by him, but uttered by many as well, and we've heard all that. But it is important to have live examples of people who in the most difficult conditions would say to the perpetrators and to the murderers, yes, you can destroy my body and you can destroy me physically, but you cannot touch my soul. My soul is happy with my Christ, and I'll continue on serving my Lord in whatever condition it is. I'm certainly ready to meet him. So that condition gives, in the most worst condition that a man, you can imagine, that would be, who would appeal for his life and so on, he proclaims his happiness being a Christian and believing in Jesus Christ and God in front of these perpetrators. My 2 grandfathers followed him in 1915. when they were pulled out of their homes next to each other in Aachen, another village again in Arabkir, close to Arabkir, and who were murdered as well, who were taken to the ravine, thrown into the ravine after being shot, both of them closely living in the same neighborhood in this village. In 2006, finally I decided to take a pilgrimage to Turkey or to historic Armenia. In my mind, of course, going to historic Armenia was not a touristic picnic or visit, but it was a pilgrimage to our historical lands. So we went to this village that I'm talking about, Aachen, and we knew where my grandfather's house was. So we went to the house, and my wife and I had prepared ourselves kind of for our revenge, the way we understood revenge to be. So we got a walnut tree and went to the house, knocked on the door, met the person who was living there, introduced ourselves, and after some time during the visit, we said, "We have brought you a gift. We have brought you a gift to the house where my grandfather was murdered." And we took this walnut tree and planted it in the backyard. And we said, "We want this walnut tree to grow and give you shelter and give you fruit, and may blessings come from this walnut tree to you and your family." That's the way we feel, that's the way we Christians are, and we certainly find our happiness in Christianity and in our faith in every way. AMAA, when the Artsakh War happened in 2020, it was a disaster. I'm sure you all followed, and certainly Artsakh was totally depopulated in an geographical area where 120, 130,000 people lived. There were few hundred people left civilians left in this Stepanakert, the capital of Artsakh. The whole area, the whole Artsakh Republic was depopulated. All of them were taken to, of course, safer grounds in Armenia. And when the war ended, on November 9, when the war ended and the declaration of peace or ceasefire was announced, AMAA immediately decided to take the families back to their homes, back to their lands, back to their homes, back to their historical homes where their families had lived for thousands of years and thousands of years. And we did that immediately by special post-war programs. We initiated those programs. We got in touch with the governments, the municipalities of both Yerevan and Stepanakert, arranged for transport, paid for it, and funded the movement of the people back to their homes. Certainly our offices opened in Stepanakert. Our office employees were all there by December 1. All our operations, and our operations are really big in Artsakh, were all open and on duty in Artsakh. Our kindergartens, our church, our AMAA offices, our support in various programs that we had. And we initiated several programs which were on top and beyond everything that we used to do there, all because we wanted our people to go back to their lands and stick to their lands. And of course, during the war, we lost some ground and some ministry and services in Shushi, which was occupied. We had a kindergarten in Shushi, and we had a camp. The only camp in Artsakh was in Shushi, administered and owned by the AMAA, called Bedrosian Camp. When we lost, of course, during the war, we lost these ministries. What we did is we transferred the ministries to Stepanakert. And I'd like to share with you a word that one of the benefactors said when asked as to, okay, I kind of called him to give him the bad news and said that, unfortunately, because of the war and the occupation now, the services in this kindergarten are going to stop. And he said, can we open a kindergarten in Stepanakert? He was not in any way turned off because of the loss. He only wanted to do it again. He only wanted to continue on and carry on that goodness to Stepanakert so that the children who were in Shushi can be taken care of in that area as well. Our programs included Empower an Artsakh family. We funded businesses, small businesses to the families so that they can start their own businesses and carry on self-sufficiency of their families. We certainly got into education, as we always are in education, distributed tablets, electronic tablets, and distributed them to students all over Artsakh with connections to internet so that they continue on learning and do not shy of going to their villages or to their towns outside the capital, Stepanakert. Certainly food provision, new clothing, child sponsorship, and most of all, we distributed Bibles, children's Bibles, to all the children of Artsakh. And around 1,000 copies of those Bibles were distributed to the children there. Our intention was to bring that happiness, that Christian happiness that we have in Christ to these children as well, so that they can start again praying, singing, dancing, and creating once more. And we now see that is the atmosphere. I would say that was the atmosphere before the blockade, and we're still trying to do it even after the blockade. The blockade came on December 12, 2022, and we thought that again life has already stopped. The clock has stopped in Artsakh again, but all our kindergartens were open. All our kindergartens were operating. Only the shut-off of natural gas was the cause for 2 days closing, because it was winter and so cold in Artsakh that they had to close the kindergartens. Otherwise, the kindergartens are operating, the children are there, they are supervised, they are educated, they are taught, they are cared for. So their life continues, and we want them to continue on being happy there. Now, because of the blockade, many people have asked, and you would ask, okay, what are we doing with provisions as well? Twice through the International Red Cross, we were able to transport powder milk. Powder milk is one of our programs, and many mothers, both in Armenia and Artsakh, use powder milk because they cannot breastfeed their infants and their babies and their children. So the Red Cross carried huge quantities of powder milk to Artsakh during the blockade, and this happened twice. And again, a week ago, we transported 4 tons of food and provisions and various supplies and material through the Russian peacekeepers again to Artsakh. So not only our attention is, of course, our focus and attention is on Artsakh, but we are doing something about it. And we stop in Goris, which is the Armenian side of the Goris-Stepanakert road leading to Artsakh, which is blocked. We have stationed there looking for every and any opportunity so that we can get some goodness to Artsakh there. Now, this is in a way repeated in Lebanon as well. Of course, you know what the Beirut explosion did, how much damage it brought to Armenian evangelical institutions, educational, spiritual churches, schools, and so on. We renovated all those at the time completely, 100%, not only repaired all the damages, but also renovated these institutions. And lately, because of the trouble that they have both in Syria and Lebanon for many, many, many reasons actually, of not having power and electricity. We funded in Syria and Lebanon the installation of solar systems, again, on church roofs and school roofs. So all our institutions have already been installed or are in the process of having solar panels installed on the roof so that they can have electricity. And now, of course, with technology advancing, there are huge batteries with a 10-year life that they can store the God-given energy and utilize it without depending on government in these areas. And then finally the earthquake came in Aleppo, and of course they haven't yet totally gone out of the damage of the war, and the earthquake, of course, was a disaster. We were ready immediately to fund needs to the Syrian Armenian evangelical community, who serve many in the general community as well. Now, there are always difficulties. There are always more and more new difficulties popping up in front of us. And one of them is that the Lebanese banks through which we transact and fund Syria are on strike. They have closed. They're stopping operations for various reasons. And so if the banks are closed, we cannot fund. But we'll find ways. We will find alternate ways and continue on serving our communities worldwide. So that's the overall situation that I wanted to update you with us, with the Armenian communities, especially in these two major areas, Armenia, Artsakh, Syria, and Lebanon. Now, my message is titled Hope. Hope is a lifeline, and I'd like to quote two passages from the Bible. Number one is Psalm 9, chapter 9, verse 18. But God will never forget the needy. The hope of the afflicted will never perish. And then Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Over the years, depending on the level of the individual interests, you have followed a little or more news of the missionary organization on AMA's Facebook pages, AMA e-blasts, or the AMA news and press releases. You have followed the AMA a little or a lot from pulpits around the world, Armenian evangelical pulpits, and churches across the continent. Traditionally, the AMA executive director or directors are on mission trips. They visit Armenia, Artsakh, Syria, Lebanon, or any one of the 24 countries that AMA serves. Recently, once again, I was on such a mission trip. It is not unusual, of course, for AMA executives to visit the mission field on a regular basis. What is unusual, though, are the circumstances on the ground in these geographical areas, especially those that constitute the lion's share in AMA's mission and ministry. The past several years were unprecedented, starting with the 2020 pandemic. Due to multiple levels of crisis experienced in all countries we serve, including, of course, the Americas. We titled an AMA Sunday. AMA Sunday is the service that we perform or we present in Armenian evangelical churches. So we had a video prepared and circulated to these churches, and we titled this video, A Year of Tribulations. If you have not had a chance to watch this, because it was sent to all churches around the world, it is on the AMA website. I recommend very much to go on the website and watch it. Upon my return from a recent emotionally packed trip, I was asked to summarize what I took with me and what I brought back. It did not take me long to pack the answers into two simple and loaded words. I carried hope, and I brought back inspiration. In the next few minutes, I will talk about what I carried with me, which is always at the core of AMA's mission: hope. We will leave the inspiration for now. Before we look into the definition of hope, let us look into the definition of the absence of hope, or hopelessness. The dictionary defines hopeless as one having no expectation of good or success, not susceptible to remedy or cure, incapable of redemption or improvement. We often hear or say, it is a hopeless case, or he is a hopeless man, or it is a hopeless effort. Now, these are serious situations where despair takes root, vision blurs, and leads to misery, destruction, and eventual fall. Hope is the remedy, and injecting hope becomes a divine task that creates a lifeline. I'd like to list 5 favorable outcomes to which hope is a lifeline. First, hope is a lifeline to success. Success in life or in any endeavor that one attempts to achieve requires strong and confident expectation. The prerequisite to a strong and confident expectation is hope. A hopeless person cannot embark on an attempt to try to be successful. Encouragement, advice, a role model, or a mere push or pull will inject hope in the person and encourage him or her to try again and again until success is achieved. That little something which makes all the difference in one's ambition to success is hope. Hope is a lifeline to success. Second, hope is a lifeline to happiness. In Jeremiah 29:11, which I read, God has a promise to the people who were carried into exile to Babylon from Jerusalem. God's declaration of having plans for the captives, plans of prosperity, plans not to be harmed, plans to give them a future, are all promises of things that will turn out to be good. Hope that things will turn out to be good is cause for happiness and joy. Hope reverts to a spirit in an affliction from despair to joy and happiness. And so hope is rewarded with joy. Hope is a lifeline to happiness. 3, hope is a lifeline to independence. Lack of hope or desperation is an addiction to dependency. If you are hopeless, you are dependent. Independence requires strength and self-confidence, and hope induces these characteristics in an individual. The conviction of I can do it develops confidence in a person, which over time leads to independence. Hopelessness paralyzes the mind and the body, restraining mental or physical action or ability. Hope mobilizes the effort to achieve success, thus leading to independence. Hope is a lifeline to independence. Number 4, hope is a lifeline to life. During the Syrian war in the 2010s, AMA introduced a program called Syria Lifeline. There was no coercion, but a free will to decide one's independent choice of either immobility under a daily shower of shells and rockets playing Russian roulette, or a choice to move to a peaceful and caring homeland, Armenia. Under the terms of the program, AMA moved around 200 families from their home fronts to the safety and security of a subsidized apartment in Yerevan. The program, which is still active and has extended to Lebanon, injected hope for a better and new life, a more bearable choice to those risking their lives in war in Syria at the time. Hope is a lifeline to life. Finally, hope is a lifeline to salvation. We read in the Bible how God's anger befell on man following Adam's sin. We also read in the Bible how Jesus shed his blood and saved man from the eternal curse. Now, salvation is the grace of God enjoyed by believers who trust the Lord, believe in the resurrection, and have faith in salvation. We have hope in salvation through our faith in the promise of God. Our hope in the living God endures us through life's struggles and leads us to perseverance. Hope is a path to our faith. Hope is a lifeline to salvation. AMA has the Great Commission inscribed on its official letterhead, where it says, "Go into the world and preach the gospel to all creation." The gospel is the good news. The good news that God will never forget the needy. The hope of the afflicted will never perish. AMA carries hope wherever it goes, and hope lays the foundation of success, leads to happiness, independence, saves life, and anchors hope in salvation. My prayer is that may we all be filled with the wonders of hope. Thank you.
A seguir eu lerei a mensagem trazida pelo Sr. Zaven Khanjan, diretor executivo da AMA, Associação Missionária Armênia da América, em que ele compartilha o trabalho desta associação junto a comunidades armênias e muitas vezes não armênias espalhadas pelo mundo. E o tema da mensagem trazida pelo Dr. Zaven Khanjan é: a esperança é uma linha de vida, uma tábua de salvação. Essa mensagem se baseia em 2 versículos. Um está em Salmos 9, versículo 18. Pois o necessitado não será para sempre esquecido, e a esperança dos aflitos não se há de frustrar perpetuamente. E Jeremias 29, versículo 11. Eu é que sei que pensamentos tenho a vosso respeito, diz o Senhor, pensamentos de paz e não de mal, para vos dar o fim que desejais. Ao longo dos anos, dependendo do nível do seu interesse, você acompanhou um pouco mais ou menos as notícias da sua organização missionária, a AMA, na página do Facebook da AMA, ou por disparos de e-mails da AMA, notícias da AMA ou comunicados à imprensa. Você seguiu a AMA, um pouco ou muito, deste púlpito ou de outros nas igrejas evangélicas armênias em todo o continente. Tradicionalmente, os diretores executivos da AMA estão em viagens de missão. Eles visitam a Armênia, Artsakh, Líbano, Síria ou qualquer um dos 24 países atendidos pela AMA. Recentemente, mais uma vez, eu, referindo-se a Zaven Khanjan, estava em uma viagem missionária. Não é incomum que os executivos da AMA visitem o campo missionário regularmente. O que é incomum são as circunstâncias no terreno em todas estas áreas geográficas, especialmente aquelas que constituem a maior parte da missão e ministério da AMA. Os últimos anos foram sem precedentes devido a múltiplas camadas de crises vivenciadas em todos esses países que servimos, incluindo as Américas. Intitulamos uma mensagem de vídeo de domingo da AMA, preparada e distribuída para as igrejas da EUNA no ano da pandemia. Um ano de tribulações. Se você ainda não teve a chance de assistir a este vídeo muito informativo, você o encontrará no site da AMA. Ao retornar de uma viagem emocionalmente carregada, pediram-me para resumir o que levei comigo e o que trouxe de volta. Não demorei muito para reunir as respostas em duas palavras simples, mas louváveis. Levei a esperança e trouxe de volta a inspiração. Nos próximos minutos, falarei daquilo que levei comigo, que está sempre no centro da missão da AMA. Esperança. Vamos deixar de lado a inspiração por enquanto. Antes de olharmos para a definição de esperança, vejamos a definição de ausência de esperança ou desesperança. O dicionário define desesperançado como alguém que não tem expectativa do bem ou sucesso, não suscetível de remédio ou cura, incapaz de redenção ou melhoria. Muitas vezes ouvimos, é um caso sem esperança. Ou, ele é um homem sem esperança. Ou, é um esforço inútil. Agora, essas são situações graves em que o desespero se enraiza, a visão obscurece e leva à miséria, à destruição e à eventual queda. A esperança é o remédio e injetar esperança torna-se uma tarefa divina que cria uma linha de vida, uma tábua de salvação. Gostaria de listar 5 resultados favoráveis para os quais a esperança é uma tábua de salvação, uma linha de vida. Em primeiro lugar, a esperança é uma linha de vida para o sucesso. O sucesso na vida ou em qualquer empreendimento que se tente alcançar requer uma expectativa forte e confiante. O pré-requisito para uma expectativa forte e confiante é a esperança. Uma pessoa sem esperança não pode avançar ou tentar ser bem-sucedida. Incentivo, conselho, um modelo ou um mero empurrão ou puxão injetarão esperança em uma pessoa e a encorajarão a tentar de novo e de novo, até que o sucesso seja alcançado. A esperança, portanto, é uma linha de vida para o sucesso. Em segundo lugar, a esperança é uma linha de vida para a felicidade. Em Jeremias 29, versículo 11, Deus tem uma promessa para o povo que foi levado de Jerusalém para o exílio na Babilônia. A declaração de Deus de ter planos para os cativos, planos de prosperidade, planos de não lhes causar o mal, planos para dar-lhes um futuro. São promessas de que as coisas vão correr bem. A esperança de que as coisas vão dar certo é motivo de felicidade e alegria. A esperança reverte um espírito aflito do desespero para a felicidade, para a alegria. A esperança é recompensada com a alegria. Portanto, a esperança é uma linha de vida para a felicidade. Em terceiro lugar, a esperança é uma linha de vida para a independência. A falta de esperança, o desespero, é um vício de dependência. Se você não tem esperança, você é uma pessoa dependente. A independência requer força e autoconfiança. E a esperança induz essas características em um indivíduo. A convicção de que eu consigo desenvolve a confiança na pessoa, que com o tempo leva à independência. A desesperança paralisa a mente e o corpo, restringindo a ação ou habilidade mental e física. A esperança mobiliza o esforço para alcançar o sucesso e leva assim à independência. Portanto, a esperança é uma linha de vida para a independência. Em quarto lugar, a esperança é uma linha de vida para a própria vida em si. Durante a guerra da Síria, na década de 2010, a AMA, Associação Missionária Armênia da América, introduziu um programa chamado Syria Lifeline, uma ajuda de vida para a Síria. Não havia coerção, mas um livre-arbítrio para decidir a escolha independente de imobilidade sob uma chuva diária de granadas e foguetes jogando roleta russa, ou a escolha de se mudar para uma pátria pacífica e amorosa. Sob os termos do programa, a AMA transferiu cerca de 200 famílias de suas casas, lá na Síria, para a segurança de um apartamento subsidiado em Yerevan. Yerevan é a capital da Armênia. O programa, que ainda está ativo e se estendeu ao Líbano, injetou a esperança para uma vida nova e melhor. Uma escolha mais suportável para aqueles que arriscam suas vidas na Síria, devastada pela guerra. Portanto, a esperança é uma linha de vida para a própria vida. E em quinto lugar, a esperança é uma linha de vida para a salvação. Nós lemos na Bíblia como a ira de Deus caiu sobre o homem após o pecado de Adão. Também lemos na Bíblia como Jesus derramou seu sangue e salvou o homem da maldição eterna. Agora, a salvação é a graça de Deus desfrutada pelos crentes que confiam no Senhor, creem na ressurreição e têm fé na salvação. Temos esperança na salvação por meio de nossa fé na promessa de Deus. Nossa esperança no Deus vivo nos sustenta nas lutas da vida e nos leva à perseverança. A esperança faz parte da nossa fé. Portanto, a esperança é uma linha de vida para a salvação. A AMA, Associação Missionária Armênia da América, tem a grande comissão inscrita em seu papel timbrado oficial, onde se diz: ide por todo o mundo e pregai o Evangelho a toda criatura. O Evangelho é a boa nova. A boa nova é de que Deus nunca se esquecerá dos necessitados. A esperança dos aflitos jamais perecerá. A AMA leva a esperança onde quer que ela vá. E a esperança estabelece as bases do sucesso, conduz à felicidade, à independência, salva a vida e ancora a própria esperança na salvação. Que todos nós sejamos preenchidos com as maravilhas da esperança. Zaven Hanjan, 19 de fevereiro de 2023.